Hi, I'm Amanda Gumbert. I'm an extension specialist for water quality at the University of Kentucky. And we're going to talk a little bit about the benefits of being a good steward of our soil and water resources. So let's start off by just kind of a big, broad brush thought of what the benefits of being a good land steward are, and really thinking about that in terms of how we manage our farms, how we use conservation practices to make it sustainable for future generations. So I like to think of it in terms of ecosystem services. And that goes beyond just natural landscapes, but also includes our agricultural and managed landscapes. And so we get benefits like water quality benefits. We get sustainable soil resources. And with that goes hand in hand is nutrient cycling. We also get wildlife habitat benefits, including pollination. And then also something that we need to really recognize and look toward are practices that help us be resilient in a changing climate. Now, we also have, beyond those ecosystem services, we have societal benefits as well. And these are things like recreation from healthy water resources and also improved human health. And I'm thinking in terms of air quality, as well as human health related to a improved mental health from the benefits of natural areas and areas of non-production in our agricultural landscapes. So let's start out by thinking about water. And why should I even care about water and water quality and what we do with our water resources? So if we think about the planet and planet Earth, we are roughly 70 to 75% water on Earth. And that seems like we would have plenty of water for all the needs that we have. But only 3% of that water is fresh water. And even less of that is available to us to use. So we have less than 1% that is fresh water that we have access to from our rivers, lakes, streams, and in our groundwater or surface water resources. So a benefit of being a good land steward is better water quality. So thinking about less nutrient runoff, you don't want a picture like we have here on the slide of algae and kind of funky water resources, especially ponds. Our ponds get mucky in the warmer months of the year. So when we have nutrients that leave the landscape and they get into the water, we have these algae blooms. And they can cause a lot of problems, not only on the farm, but beyond the farm also and downstream. If we have less erosion, then we have less sediment in our waterways. Sediment or soil particles are our number one water pollutant worldwide. And when we lose soil to erosion, then we've lost it from the landscape for production. Proper manure management also means that we have less pathogens, things like E. coli, that would get into our water resources. And when we have good pesticide management, then we have overall fewer chemicals in our water resources. And really all of this boils down to having better drinking water. And so when we take care of our landscape and we are managing for erosion and for nutrient losses and pesticide losses, ultimately it boils down to better water quality for us as humans to drink. And that's really important. So another reason that we should care about water resources, reflecting back on our drinking water resources, is we want to take care of future generations. I want to take care of my family. I know you want to take care of yours. And we want to make sure that our whole population, our children and our grandchildren have high quality, healthy water resources that they can use into the future. Also, I care about those who live downstream from me. I know sometimes it's out of sight, out of mind, but everything that we do on our landscape influences our water quality. So everything that happens upstream is going to affect folks downstream. And in this case, the things that we do in Kentucky ultimately will affect landowners and fishermen all the way down to the Gulf of Mexico. So another thing we can think of in terms of is our soil resources. So when we think about being a good land steward, we think about conserving our soil resources. Again, if we have less erosion, then we've got more topsoil available to us for good production. When we take care of those soil resources, we can improve our soil structure and we can increase our organic matter, and with that have a greater water holding capacity. Remember, I mentioned having some climate resilience, and so having water holding capacity in our soils helps our soils and our landscapes handle the heavy rainfall events that we are having more and more frequently. So if we can hold the water in the soil, then that prevents it from running off and having more erosion issues on the landscape. So ultimately, sustainable soil resources will help our future generations be productive on the farm. Let's also think in terms of wildlife. Wildlife is another benefit that we can get from being a good steward of our land and using good stewardship practices. So utilizing our non-production areas in ways that promote beneficial wildlife. So again, we're talking about predators that might target pest insects. So maybe birds, bats, other beneficial insects that are going to help provide some natural or ecological based pest control on the farm. And also provide habitat for our pollinators that are essential to the work that we're doing on the farm. We might also be interested in hunting and fishing opportunities, and certainly in just plain old enjoyment of wildlife viewing, in a time that when we spend a lot of time on the farm, and we oftentimes really will marvel at the wildlife that will utilize the non-production areas of the farm. We also benefit overall by having recreational opportunities. So good water resources, clean water resources helps to promote better environments for boating, for swimming, and enjoying the landscape. And also with that, we get some societal benefits. And sometimes as farmers and landowners, we may not be compensated financially for these benefits, but we are providing benefits from our agro ecosystems to the greater society, and maybe to your own family and those who enjoy your farm by rest and overall enjoyment and having some recreational opportunities and improved mental health from these landscapes that are healthy, they're productive, and they contribute to a more stable overall ecosystem. Another benefit that we get is from the economic side. So if we think about how we utilize practices on the landscape, we can have fewer inputs. And so that's going to save us money right out of the gate in terms of not paying as much for pest control or not paying as much for fertilizer if we can utilize the resources well that we have on the farm already. We can have less cost for water treatment if we're taking care of the landscape and not sending pollutants downstream. Then we don't have to treat for those contaminants and pollutants that might be in our waterways. An obvious one is we can avoid fines. If we are taking care to abide by the law and implement plans like we should and carry out our practices in good and sustainable ways, then we can avoid any kind of fine related to, related to environmental enforcement. And overall, we're going to have improved land value. So I mentioned the avoiding fines part that kind of plays directly into being compliant with the law and not being a bad actor. So that's kind of that legal side of being a good steward. So you don't have to worry about, somebody fining you for being out of compliance with a particular regulation. And then ultimately, the question I might ask is, what's the legacy? What are you leaving to future generations? And I know many of us want to leave our land to future generations to farm and to carry on our family traditions. But if we don't take good care and be good stewards of those resources now, then what will those future generations be left with? And I think that's an important consideration when we choose practices, we choose conservation practices, and make sure that we are being productive, that we are getting the economic returns that we need to keep farming, but that we also are providing the benefits to the whole agro ecosystem. So what can you do as a farmer? So a simple step that you can do is to develop and implement your Kentucky Ag Water Quality Plan. And that is a set of best management practices that you'll follow to protect water and soil resources on the farm. They'll also, most of them make really good agronomic sense. So you're going to get the economic benefit as well as the ecosystem benefits. And you can get other economic benefits through financial incentives or cost share programs that are offered on the federal, state, and local level. So I encourage you to utilize conservation practices and be a really good steward of your landscape.